Welcome everyone to our webinar, Love 'em or Lose 'em, in today's world of work with Bev Kaye. This is going to be our last webinar before our summer break. So not to worry if there's any scheduling conflicts that have come up for you. We're recording this session, so we'll be sending that out along with a follow-up after we wrap up. And of course, if you've ever missed any of our webinars or sessions, we do always record them and we host them on our website under the On the Airwaves section. So you can go there and check that out. And there's also a lot of other great videos and resources. My name is Shelby Brown, and I'm the Director of Client Services here at the Roundtable. I'll be your host for today, managing the chat and the back end and all that kind of fun stuff. For those of you who are new to us, we at the Roundtable are committed to making an impact. And as part of our own commitment to ongoing reconciliation, in January of 2022, we partnered with an organization called Inspire. Inspire is a national Indigenous registered charity that invests in the education of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people for the long-term benefit of these individuals, their families, and communities in Canada. The awful discovery of 215 Indigenous children buried in mass graves in Kamloops, BC in 2021 deeply affected us. So to honor the legacy of the Kamloops 215, we're striving to provide 215 university scholarships over the next 5 years. And actually, as of today, we have provided scholarships and bursaries to 31 students. So we're continuing on our mission to do so, but we're quite excited to have supported 31 students so far. So as part of my own work as an ally, I now want to say a land acknowledgement for where I'm residing. I respectfully acknowledge that in St. Catharines, we are on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. So before we get into the good stuff, we really want to hear from you today. We have the chat that's open. I'll be monitoring that, as I said, as well as the Q&A. Do not be shy to put your questions in at any time. We love when the crowd is interactive. And just a little bit about the Roundtable. We just celebrated our Sweet 16, actually, I guess about 6 months ago, back in December, but we've been in business for 16 years, so that was an exciting milestone. And now I'd like to introduce Glain Roberts-McCabe, Glain like shine. Glain is our founder and president of the Roundtable. Glein's a certified executive coach and has over 30 years experience leading teams in both private, public, and not-for-profit sectors. Glein's the creator of several multi-award-winning group coaching programs, including the Roundtable for Leaders, the Roundtable Catalyst, and the Roundtable High Performance Team Coach Program, which I know many of you on the call here today have had the privilege of joining. And of course, she's also the author of 2 best-selling books, The Grassroots Leadership Revolution, and Did I Really Sign Up for This? So Glain, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Thanks, Shelby. And my book, Did I Really Sign Up for This, is kind of how I'm feeling. That book was actually named, fun fact, by members of the Roundtable community when I was looking for a book title. And that was the one that overwhelmingly came back was, did I really sign up for this? So just for those of you that maybe don't know much about us on the call, I'll just quickly go that, and then we're going to get to the main event, which is my friend Bev Kaye, who's with us. So just to know where we come at this leadership space. So often, leadership usually starts with the question, hey, we need some training or some coaching. And, but I think those of us have been around for a while, and certainly as leaders, we know, training and coaching takes us so far. So a pretty shallow conversation should just stay there. So we need to go a little bit deeper, right? And in the work that we're doing, what we find when we dig deeper is what people are saying they want exceptional leadership, they want exceptional teams, and they want an exceptional culture. And for us, so you can work with all of those things discreetly and look at behaviors and look at motivation, but what I have learned about leadership, and I know you all know this to be true, that expression, it's lonely at the top. We've had that expression for a really long time. Leadership is lonely. This is the problem. It does not have to be. We've got to get away from this military model of this heroic leader where you're going to have it all figured out and you're going to be able to do everything for everybody, and instead start to really think about how do we unleash collective talent. And as leaders, how can we go beyond our ego and start to really embrace this idea of how can we unleash the talent of others? And so take this shift from sort of this heroic model to unleashing collective impact. And that's really what we've developed at the Roundtable, is a number of systems around that. What it looks like in practicality is one-on-one coaching, group coaching, and team coaching, and all of that with this idea of building capability together. So if you're interested in any of that, give me a call, reach out. But we are here today with the fabulous and the wonderful Dr. Beverly Kaye, who is a researcher, a trailblazer, and author of a number of books. I mean, we're going to talk quite a bit about love 'em or lose 'em today, because that seems to be the topic du jour. But Bev, I am just thrilled that you're here joining us. And I'm super excited to get into this conversation with you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here, and great to be here. I was telling you before that my husband is from Montreal, so I've got to know Canada pretty well.
Well, I love that you're wearing red for our red maple leaf on our flag today.
Right? Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You planned that, didn't you?
Yes.
Well, I want to tell everybody how I met you, because we first met, and I know exactly when we first met. Do you know when we first met? We met in December of 2000, and I was at the ISA the Association for Learning Providers conference for the first time. I can't remember where it was even, but it was a sales and marketing conference. And I was sitting in the audience, and they were pulling draws for a book, or for a number of books. And I won this book.
The first edition. Wow.
Yes, and signed, I don't know if everybody can see this, signed by my new friend Bev Kaye. And so I love this book. And so I'm so excited to be able to talk to you, because really, Bev, I said trailblazer in the intro, but I mean, you were thinking about this kind of work well before other people were thinking about this kind of work. Talk to me a little bit about what got you interested in career development, this whole side of, retention, engagement. What kind of piqued your interest about that from the beginning?
When I think back, because I started in the world of career development, and my first book was titled Up is Not the Only Way.
Yeah.
And now talent mobility is huge.
Yes.
And I want to yell, why didn't you all listen to me all those years ago?
I know.
So I have perfected the conversation between manager and employee on the subject of career.
Yeah.
And developed a training organization that was global and delivered that message around the world that there are many options to growth other than up. And then I started to read the literature on why people stay. And everything I read said people come for the career dream they have. And people leave when they think they can't get it in that organization. And so it pushed me into the world of engagement and retention.
Yeah.
And one of the first books in that area was McKinsey on the war for talent.
Yes, I remember that book so well.
The famous line was, people don't leave organizations, they do leave managers. And everybody said, right, right. But nobody was telling the managers, so what precisely do you do?
Right.
And I'm a very how-to kind of girl.
Yeah.
I'm the how behind the why. Everybody knows the why.
Yes.
And I make it as simple as possible. And so it moved me into the world of engagement and retention, where career development sits in one really important spot. But there are many other reasons people stay. And I love that the word unleash talent. And maybe the only way to unleash talent is to love them.
I
Or
agree.
you'll lose them. That was a perfect segue.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think that the work and I think this is where you and I are cut from the same cloth. I think there's so many great theories and academic, research that's out there, but to really make it pragmatic and practical for leaders that are working really hard at their day jobs and have to
Right.
incorporate this work into the
Right.
day-to-day. I so appreciate that about your work, and you do make it incredibly accessible. So tell us a bit, because I think you've been studying this and you've been in this field since you did your doctoral program back in the 70s. Um,
70s.
yeah, I know, crazy. So what hasn't changed since you did that work back then? Because I think people think, oh, it was way different back then, business was different back then, but talk to me about, well, what's not that different?
So I'll tell you about the career part because it's built in to love them.
Yeah.
And it is all about how do you make it memorable and easy. So I'm going to tell your audience that in my doctoral work, and I failed my doctoral orals 3 times because my committee wanted me to do phenomenological research, which
Mm,
means you study a phenomenon.
mm,
And when you have a ton of data, you look at it and you build a theory about it. And I was not a theory builder. I was a go, 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 let's get this done.
yeah.
And so 3 tries. And finally, I came up with, for that first book, a systemic approach to
Mhm.
career development. So number 1, there's a 3S model. The individual is the spark. The individual knocks on their manager's door and has to have thought about their career.
Mhm.
The manager is the support, not the answer machine.
Mm,
Question asker, the thinker along with the individual, and the organization provides the systems and the
right,
structure
right.
and the work that goes into keeping it happening. And the original, and I still use it. So for those of you who want to think about your careers, it's all about the 5 P's of career development.
Mm,
Number 1 is person. You better think about the talent you have and what you bring to the party,
mhm,
person. The second P is perspective. You better think about how others see you.
mhm,
Do they see you the way you see yourself? Do they get how others are receiving their input, etc.?
mhm,
So that's perspective. Places, how is the work world changing? And how are you going to change with it or not?
mhm.
The fourth P is possibilities. And the most important letter in the word is the S on the end, knowing there are more ways to move than just up. And the last P is plan. Okay, so how do I get there?
Mhm.
Those 5 back in the 70s are really the same structure that is true right now today. In one of my books, I narrowed it down to 3, not 5, to try to help the busy manager not have to think about 5,
Right.
but that's the key. And it's that simple and it's that hard too.
Yeah, what of the P's, what would you say you've encountered has been the hardest one?
Probably the hardest is the possibilities. And
Mm,
probably it is that because people want to move right there.
right.
People say, well, what's next? Let's talk about what's next. And
Yes.
you can't get to what's next unless you think about yourself, you think about your brand, how you're seen, you think
Yes.
about the world and how it's changing, and then maybe you can begin to say, well, here are my possibilities.
Yes.
So it's still hard. And people still want up.
Yes. They do want up. And I
They
think a
still want
part
up.
of that is maybe with the structures within the system that force
That
people to
that
want to go up.
reward up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, it's interesting. I told my husband recently that on my gravestone, I wanted to say, now, Beverly, up is the only way. And then I'll give it up, you know, right?
So let's sort of keep on the theme a little bit of like where it gets tricky. So where would you say people are suffering the most in their careers these days? Like what are you observing and seeing from where people are struggling the
You
most?
know, I think COVID made us look deeper
Mm-hmm.
and wider at ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
maybe say, is this what I really want to be doing?
Yes.
Is this my way? You know, I turned 80 a few months ago, and I am asking myself that all the time. You
Yeah.
know, what about my work do I want to change?
Yeah.
And I don't intend to stop, but I know I want to carve out more me time.
Yes.
And given my pace, I don't know, I'm still working on that one. So
Yeah.
I'll come back in a year or two, okay? And then let you
You
know.
can tell us what you figured
Right,
out.
right,
I
right,
think I think isn't that the myth of career when you're younger? You think you're going to get a job and and that's going to be it. It's going
right,
to fulfill you until you go to and I suppose
right.
for some people there's a truth in that.
There is.
But I know for myself, it wasn't that easy. It wasn't a direct line. It was a lot
Right,
of, sort of jungle gymming to try and
right,
figure
right.
out what it was that I wanted to actually
Exactly,
do.
exactly.
And it's almost like we need to be, I don't know, I think we sort of measure ourselves against a promotion or how we're getting ahead. And if that's the only measurement that we have, it can also start to feel very unfulfilling in your job, or you can
Right,
feel like a failure because you
right,
haven't achieved
right,
those milestones if those are so I love your
right.
possibilities piece, right? To really start thinking about what are some other possibilities for me,
For me,
other
right.
places
You
to
know, the one
explore.
that I think most organizations ignore
Mm,
is, and I'll tell you what the 6 possibilities are, um,
yeah.
but they ignore enrichment. They ignore growing right where they are.
Yes.
And with my clients, there's a lot of talk about managers hoarding talent and
Yes.
how do you prevent that? And it's hard. I mean, if I have great players and they help me look good, why would I want to let them go?
Yeah.
And often they have to go to grow. So
Yes.
that's just the way it is. But I think growing right where you are and seeing possibilities. In that book, I talk about career goals should be you should think kaleidoscope, not telescope. And
Mm,
kaleidoscope meaning you turn it just a little bit and a whole new vista awaits you
yeah.
versus telescope, setting my sights on that one thing. And I think that's old now. And I think we're all, in a way, using the kaleidoscope career idea. And anybody interested, I know we just put up some information about it under My Kaleidoscope Career. I think that's the name
I
of it.
love that. I
And
love that visual too, because
I
it's so
do.
accurate. Um, I think about, and that's what makes it tricky for managers to have career conversations though, isn't it? Like what you just touched on there. I think I always say when we're talking about being a career coach in our programs, I always say it's a hard line because you have deliverables. This person helps you hit the deliverables. You don't want this person to leave your team. You're
Right,
really
right,
trying
right,
everything to
right,
engage them and keep them, but we all have free will. And if the person doesn't want to do that work anymore
right,
because they're bored, they're tired, they've moved
right,
on, they're doing soul searching, you can't ignore it. It's going to have, they'll
right,
either quit or you can figure out something else for them
Right.
to kind of go and do. So I think about, the book Love 'Em or Lose 'Em, and talk to me a little bit about what prompted you to write that book in the first place. And then we can talk about some of your favorite letters from that book, because I think the structure of the book is so
Right.
cool.
Right. The book is organized according to the alphabet.
Yes, it's
And the
great.
reason it is Sharon, my co-author, and I actually wrote the book twice, and we were bored by our own book. So I remember we used to meet in a hotel room where we both lived. And I said to her, I had a dream that we organized all our data according to the alphabet, A through Z.
Mm.
And that's how we presented the book. And I said, that's a stupid idea, isn't it? She was smarter than me. She said, well, it's not stupid till we try. And I remember papering the hotel room with the
Yeah,
alphabet and having all our data, our interviews, our assessments, and saying, okay, what could be the A, what could be the D, what could be the X was hard,
yeah.
etc. And we stuck till we got, every letter of the alphabet pulled from the data.
Mm.
And the book has been out for 25 years.
Amazing.
900,000 copies last I looked.
Amazing.
And it's like when we published that first copy that you have, and we went around asking for endorsements. I
Yeah.
remember we went to a top-notch person in the field, and he said, I can't endorse it because this is too basic. And if you publish this, people will never take you seriously again.
Oh my
So,
gosh. Well, what
but
did he
we
know?
did it anyway.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think now what managers need is to give it to me in a simple way
Mhm.
that I could swallow easily.
Yeah.
And I know that I want any audience I face or my people face, the audience to say, I can do that.
Yeah.
That's not so hard.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think
That's what's great about your book
that's
is
what
it is
kills it.
just packed with these very simple ideas that people can incorporate into their practices. So what are your favorite letters out of the book? Like if you had to pick a few of your favorite ABCs, what's
Um,
up to mind?
well, the E for enrich that
Okay.
I just mentioned,
Yeah.
because I think people ignore it.
Mm.
Um, you know, the J in the alphabet is for jerk, don't be one. And when we went to our publisher at the time and we said, this is what we figured, this is what their chapters are going to be, he said, why that one? You have most of them are positive. Why
Yeah.
that? And we said it has to be because the way we did the research is we read exit interviews, and then
Mm,
we followed with a number of people the person into the next organization. And
interesting.
we said, we have your exit interview in hand. You said this.
Yeah.
What didn't you say?
Oh,
And that was the magic question. And they all, in a variety of words, said, my boss was a jerk and I could not take it anymore. And as good researchers, we said, precisely what do you mean by the word jerk?
yes, that was going to be
And
my question.
and they gave us 55 jerkatudinal characteristics. And we wrote them down, and we knew we had to have that chapter in the book. And you know what we do in the training when we come to that letter, and we don't teach all the letters, people get to pick the ones they really want to learn about. We have a list of those characteristics.
Yeah.
And we say to the audience, have any of you been at the mercy of a boss with any of these?
Yeah.
And of course, people say, I have. And then the question is, and what did that do to you,
Right.
to your energy, to your commitment, to your
Mm-hmm.
staying,
Mm-hmm.
etc. And all of a sudden, everything comes out about what bad bosses do.
Yeah.
And people say, oh my God, I think I do that too.
I was just gonna say, like, do people, the light bulbs go off and people go,
Yes,
oh, I kind of
yes,
resemble that
yes.
remark.
Yes, yes, yes. And many managers who are brave take the list and show it to their employees and
Mm,
say, which one of these do I overdo for you? See, the
right.
whole idea is, what is it for you? Like,
Yes.
I think any person in the audience could just open to the table of contents
Yeah.
and say to their employee, which one of these 26 letters should I do more of?
Yes.
And if anyone just wants a list of all 26, send me a note and I'll send you the 26, then you don't even need the book. But
Yeah. But get the book, because it is really great. It's been
right,
on, like I said, I recycle books all the time. It's been on my shelf for 24
that's the
years.
first, right?
Um,
So I think it's important that we get to say, what is it that you want?
mhm.
And some
Mhm.
of the wants we can't deliver. In
Yes.
fact, that's where the idea of the stay interview came from.
Right.
And we wrote a whole book just on the stay interview. The mistake we made is we never trademarked the name. And now everybody's talking about stay
The
interviews.
stay interview.
But the
So,
magic of the stay interview is asking people, why do you stay?
yeah.
What about this organization? What about our unit? What about me
Yeah.
makes you want to stay?
Yeah.
And from that, you gain much more than asking it at the exit interview. Like, why are you leaving? What didn't we do? Then it's too late. Usually.
I think that question is such a great question when you step into a new team, right off the bat. Because I think often what new team leaders will do is they'll learn about the business and they'll get to know individuals on the team on a, personal level, potentially. But they then start thinking about all the ways they want to put their own fingerprints on it, or their boss has told them, you need to go in and turn this around. This isn't working. This is different. And so, I love the book by Michael Watkins, The First 90 Days, because he gets you to sort of slow your roll a little bit when you come in. But I think this idea of incorporating a stay interview anytime you take on a team to just find out, but then not to just do it that one time, to make that whether it's like, what would you say is the right thing? Is it an annual practice that you should be doing these sorts of, it doesn't have to be formal, right? But just sort of a conversation to see.
There are a zillion ways to ask that question. Why do you stay? And there are many times in the day that you could say, well, gosh, I saw you brighten up when you did X.
Yes.
Tell me more about that. I never realized you liked it so much.
Yes.
So it is that question. In fact, my favorite career question and retention question is to ask, when was the last time you said, thought, or felt, I love this work?
Right.
And when I deliver it, and it's a live audience, I could look at people's eyes.
Yeah.
And I could see if they're saying, oh, God, it was a long time ago. Or they're saying just yesterday in the elevator,
Yes.
etc. And if love is not a comfortable word to use, because when we fought for the title, the publisher said, this is a business book. This is 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think you can put love in the title.
Yeah.
We said we have to.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm wearing red when I talk about it. And it is the only word that captures a sea of other words.
Yes.
And now love is used a lot in organizations.
Yeah, yeah, I think it is used a lot. Sometimes I think not with the grounding of what that actually means sometimes, but I think I think a lot of these words like vulnerability, I mean, you wouldn't have heard that word 25 years ago in business
Right.
either, would you? And yet
Right.
now it's,
Right.
I have a quote on one of my leadership truths that's vulnerability is the new black, right? Like
Yes.
it's just the thing we all have to be bringing to the
Yeah.
table. Okay, I'm curious a little bit of why do you think sometimes as managers we're hesitant to have these kinds of conversations with people? What is it that you think holds
You
folks
know,
back from these types?
number one, if nobody's done it with you,
Right.
you have no role model.
Yeah.
So that's a big I'm going to avoid. You know, in the book Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, we have a whole series of here's why managers avoid the career conversation.
Mhm.
And one of the big things is I'll bet she's going to ask for that upward move that
Right.
I can't give. And
Right.
then my saying, no, I can't do that is going to push a bigger distance between us.
Yes.
And we say, say I can't deliver. Tell the truth and
Yeah.
say, but I am determined to keep you on my team. What else is important? Because I
Yes.
want to find the things I could do something about. And I've said for years, if you ask the what else question 3 times and
Yeah.
you don't get something that you can do something about, call me up
Yeah.
and tell me, aha, I couldn't do this, because you will find something, but you've got to hang in with the, what else question.
Yes, because, and I think with that, going back to possibilities, I think when you're in an organization and we're so fixated on the rung of the ladder, right? And how to get to the next rung of the ladder, then we don't know that there's other possibilities. And I think that
Right.
idea of enrichment that you talked about earlier, sometimes as a manager, part of our job is to help people see the broader possibilities and how it's not
Right.
necessarily about that next title. And sometimes you're not going to be happy going to that next
Right.
level.
I don't even want that. And what about the people, and I see this all the time, who say, I want the technical person who says, yep,
Yeah.
that's the way up. I'm going to be a manager. They
Yes.
get there. Not only do they not like it, not
Yeah.
only are they not good at it,
Yeah.
but instead of saying to their leader, this isn't working, they will look elsewhere.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
see that over and over and over. So
Yes.
one of the distinct moves I talk about is called realignment, which
Mhm.
says, I did that, and it's not right for me. I
Mhm.
want to realign, maybe not back to what I was doing, but I want to go back in some way to using my technical know-how
Mhm.
and not my people know-how.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that sometimes it makes me leave rather than speak up in my own organization.
Yeah, what do you think prevents employees from speaking up, or any of us really when we're having
Yeah,
a career conversation with our manager? What's the
you
fear
know,
factor?
it maybe it's our hypothesis that if I say no, they'll see me as a non-doer, a non-go-getter.
Yes.
I remember speaking to an audience of women at a big women's conference, like 600 women. And I asked them the question, how many of you feel you can say no to an upward move?
Mm.
And very few raised their hands.
Yes.
And it was a shock at that moment to me. And when I started asking why, it was they'll never ask again. It is, they'll think I don't see myself as this. And so I say yes because I think I have to.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's not going to make you very happy, huh? Not. And you're a coach, you must see this all the time.
Oh, all the time, all the time. And I think, how do you move beyond that? And is some of that saying, so this is one of my things that I wonder about a lot of the time, because when I work with with younger leaders, and again, we work with these type A personalities that are very ambitious and go, go,
Right,
go.
right.
And I think there's definitely, I hear that fear of I'm going to get passed over, that type of concern. What I notice about people when I talk to them that are in their late 40s, early 50s in their career, who are still the type A,
Yeah,
but they have a reflection on, and I find it interesting because I have a bit of a conundrum between this, and maybe you can help me with this. They will say, oh, I put too much pressure on myself. I said yes to stuff that I didn't do, but I don't regret having those experiences because it made me where I am today.
right.
And I think to myself, so is it really a chicken or an egg? If you are somebody who wants to rise up the ranks, I mean, do you sometimes just have to take on critical experience jobs and roles and things that you don't want to do because it is truly going to get you to the career that
Right,
you want to get to?
right.
And organizations, frankly, do value people who will say yes and take on those things. And
Right,
so is
right,
there some reality that it could be a limiting move at a certain stage of your
right.
career? I mean, those are the things that I kind of
They
wrestle with.
are, they are. And you just mentioned something that I think is very important too. We give people opportunities
Mhm.
and then we never help them. I bet you do as a coach, unpack the opportunity and
Yes,
say,
yes,
here's what I learned from that.
right.
And you just move on to the next adventure.
Yeah.
And there's a great quote. T.S. Eliot said, the sad thing is to have the experience and miss the meaning.
Mhm.
And now I see companies wonderfully offering a lot of short-term gigs, short-term assignments.
Yeah.
And someone does it, finishes it, but no one says, and what did you learn from that?
Yes.
How did that change you?
Yes.
And so we just whoosh, move right on.
Yeah.
And then we do miss the meaning.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we really do. Okay, folks, if you've got questions that you want to ask Bev about career management, having career conversations, how to retain people, all of those kinds of things, now's the time to start throwing them in the chat, because I'm just going to keep rolling because I got a million more of these. But uh, make sure you kind of pop them in. I'm going to keep my eye on the chat now. I think about, a lot of clients right now that we're talking to, one of the things they're really struggling with is career management in a hybrid environment. I mean, I grew up in a face-to-face leadership environment. My team members were right outside my door. And then I started the Roundtable and I went fully remote. And that was a big learning for me as a manager, how to manage fully remote. Post-COVID, when we're all fully remote, we went back to it in COVID. Now I'm back to sort of a hybrid type role. We're onboarding new team members. They're in the office to start, but not everybody else is in the office. All of these things are, adding to a bit like new dynamics, I would say. And I know a lot of our clients are struggling with similar things. So what are some of your thoughts on, the differences in today's, world of work where we've got this hybrid structure that we're all trying to figure out how to navigate, and how career conversations and helping people navigate careers fits into that?
It's interesting. I knew you were going to hit on that topic some way. And over the weekend during my vacation, I had to read the manuscript of the new Help Them Grow book.
Mm.
And the one chapter, it was funny because this is pretty good. The one chapter was called Developing at a Distance.
Yeah, love it.
And because how do you do career development when we're not even with the person?
Yeah, yeah.
And in that particular book, each chapter starts with a quote and we say from an employee may be yours. And the quote that starts that chapter says, my face may be the same size as everyone else's in those boxes on our virtual team meetings, but I sure feel a lot smaller than my colleagues in the office when it comes to developing my career.
Mm.
And there are certain things that go on when you're present
Mhm.
that you miss when you are not.
Yes.
And it's a matter of managers waking up to that, and especially around career, and fitting in opportunities to say, how are you doing? What
Yeah.
worked, what didn't, etc. Because I don't see you all the time.
Mhm.
And the huddles don't happen when
Mhm.
you're remote. So, I see someone said it's so true, nothing like being in person, right? In
Mhm.
fact, just because I have this, one of the titles of a chapter is Out of Sight, but on Your Mind.
Mm.
Like, and then the question is, are they?
Right.
Are they?
Yeah. I mean, it's
And
really it's interesting. I think what I'm seeing and hearing a little bit is there's a fear for people who have made the decision to work more remotely, that by not being in the office, because what we're hearing from our clients is that it's really two levels that are in the office a lot: the senior level, senior executives, and then younger employees. So my
right,
daughter has her first real corporate job, and she will go in because she was looking for community. The younger
right,
employees often are looking for more community.
right,
And
right,
those
right,
those that are in the middle of their careers with small children, maybe aging parents, the flexibility that comes from being able to work from home is appealing. Like, let's face
very,
it, you can be very productive when you're
very,
but if you're a company that relies on I think mentorship, people having to learn alongside, technology can go so far. But
right,
there are things that I
right,
think those spaces that we lose in between, like the huddles or the casual coffee, or hearing somebody on the phone and being able to say to them,
right.
"Ooh, you know what? Let me just give you a bit of, coaching on how you handle that, because I have another
Absolutely.
way," right? We just don't, it feels like those are getting a little frayed for people. And so therefore learning curves are taking longer. It's becoming a little bit
Absolutely.
more tricky, right, to onboard people. Like we have a number of clients that onboarded a lot of new people during COVID, and now we're really struggling with accountability is the issue that they're coming to us
Right,
about.
right, right,
But it's more like it's almost like the learning as an organization has
right.
shifted and they
It's
haven't quite
shifting,
figured it,
right. And
right?
you mentioned mentoring, and
Mhm.
when you asked me what's a favorite chapter, one of them is the M for mentor.
Yeah.
And in that chapter, I say, I think we've made too much of mentoring. Like
Mm.
it's a burden.
Yes.
We have to realize anybody could be a mentor, and all a mentor is you model,
Mhm.
that's the M, you encourage, you nurture, and you teach organizational reality. That's the
Mhm.
TOR.
Yeah.
It's like, don't ever go into that meeting without prep, or
Yeah.
don't ever know that, you'll cross the line if I mean, share the reality of how to negotiate in your organization.
Mhm. So
And
maybe,
that's what a mentor does.
yeah. Yeah, I think for sure. And I think as I'm listening to you, I'm curious about what advice you would have for people who maybe are struggling with this balance of keeping their employees on their mind when they're out of sight. Are there some practices that you just think are really good practices for those of us who have, team
Right.
members working
We're
different
out of
times,
sight.
coming into the office on different days? What are some things that you're seeing are really
And
effective?
maybe it's as as easy as saying, once a week, do a check-in.
Mm.
Just do a check-in, and it could be 5 minutes. It could
Mhm.
be what's going on, what's working, what's not working,
Yeah.
anything, just wondering how you're doing.
Yeah.
What was the high point of last week for you? What was the low point? Can you imagine if everybody got to tell their managers the high and the low,
Yeah.
and there was no recrimination or whatever for the low? But the manager then gets more data
Yeah.
that way.
I think,
And
I think as I listen to you, I think so much of it, there's a fundamental piece that sits under all of this work that is managers. And this is going back to your title, love them, right? Like you intrinsically have to want the best for the people that are on your team,
right.
right? Like you have to look at managing not as a, oh, I got to manage these people and tell,
Right,
and
right.
performance manager and tell them and make sure that they're doing their work and like this sort of punitive, overlord type view of
Right,
managing,
right.
but more like what a privilege it is to be able to help somebody find out who they're supposed to be, right?
Right.
And do work that they love, right? And what a great opportunity that is when you're
Right,
a
right.
people leader to do that. And yet I think we get stuck more in the mud around sometimes what it is to manage and lead. And then we're afraid to rock the boat with people. What if they ask for something that I can't give them? Or what if they
Right.
ask for, a raise? Or what if they ask for, so I'm
Right.
just going to avoid the conversation
Right,
altogether.
that's exactly the, yeah. And when you avoid, you lose all information,
Yes.
and it's nothing wrong in saying, I can't deliver on that. I wish I could.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But what else that added, what else? Because I want something, if I can find it that I can deliver on, God, I don't want to lose you. I'll do it.
Yeah. Well, we're
And
coming up on the last five. I can't believe this hour has flown by and we're up on the last 5 minutes or so. So folks, this is your chance. You've got Bev Kaye. She's the preeminent thinker on this type of work. You've got a question. Now is your time to ask it. I'll ask you one that kind of came to my mind. What's a mistake that you think people often make when it comes to managing their own careers?
maybe the easiest is the words, I can't,
Mm,
I'll never learn, I can't, or I'll never, just the messages we give ourselves.
mhm,
And as a coach, you must see that all the time,
mhm,
the self messages. And when you
mhm.
give yourself the message all the time, you
Yeah.
begin to live the message, don't you? Right.
Yeah. And I think, the other thing that I was very grateful in 1999, I heard Marcus Buckingham
Buckingham.
speak, right? And he'd
Right.
just written that book with Kurt Kaufman, First Break All the Rules. And
Right.
it was all about this idea that the best managers were strengths-based. They focused on people's strengths. And but the aha for me was the idea of what is a strength? Because what I realized is that you can be really great at a whole bunch of things. And those that are on the call that are in the Roundtable program know that we have this baked into our core programs, because to me, it's so fundamentally important. But you can be great at a lot of things. That doesn't mean you want to do them for the rest of your life. And so this idea of where strength and passion collide is really what a true strength is, when you really love something and you want to do more of it, and you can bring that to the organization, and how much more productivity and value you're going to add to the organization by bringing those two pieces together. And so I feel like, as managers, if we really want to kind of, build people, help people stay aligned to the mission of the organization, we need to understand what their strengths are. And yet so often, I think that I can't often comes from people telling you what you're good at and you going, I know, but I don't know that I want to keep doing that. Or it's others, like you have to look within you. I think going back to exactly what we started at the top of the hour, these 5 Ps sound easy, but they're actually a lot of work for you to know the people,
They are.
like who are you as a person?
Right.
You need to know, right?
Right.
Not what your dad told you or your mom told you or your 3rd grade teacher told you were going to be good at.
Right. Right. And it's why coaching has become so huge,
Yeah,
you know, in Canada, in the USA,
yeah,
because people don't always get the one-on-one.
right.
You know, I was reading a magazine this morning, and it was somebody's 3-year-old said to her, "I see me in you, Mom."
Hmm.
And I thought, oh, how touching from a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, so what are people seeing in us that
Yes.
we can't see ourselves,
Yes.
that we cannot see ourselves?
Yes. I read a quote that has always stuck with me, and I say it to my clients a lot, actually. When other people believe in you, believe them, right? Because we're
Right.
so quick to dismiss, we're so quick to sort of push off the sort of, strengths and gifts that we bring to the table.
Right.
So I'm gonna ask you one last question. It looks like we've got the way I read that we haven't got any questions in the chat, Bev, is because you have been dropping so many nuggets of gold here today and great structures that people are, getting so much out of this.
Good, good.
I want to ask you, what's a piece of career advice that you received that you actually wish you'd ignored?
You know, I would go all the way back to um, graduating high school and being told you can only be a secretary, a nurse, or a teacher in those days. And then
Yeah,
going to a teacher's college, knowing that I wasn't crazy about the idea of teaching. Elementary school was what and it
right.
wasn't until I got more sense of me
Mm,
and the uniqueness I don't know, I had a very limited view.
mhm.
I think now, thank heavens for women and men. My gosh, the the view was so. I'll leave with one thought. I think people are either opportunity minded or opportunity blinded. And I am opportunity minded to a fault,
Mm,
so that anyone near me, I want to either fix them up or give them a something, or, I mean, and everything's an opportunity.
yeah,
But I think I take it too far.
yeah.
Um, and that's why my office looks like this.
You can't see the tabletop that I'm standing beside, but it's very similar. No, I think it's so true. And I think that, in organizations today, I always think if you outsource your career management to other people, you're really sort of putting your career at risk. I think it really does. It's really on each of us to know what it is that we want to contribute, can contribute to the company. And we need to have those conversations with our managers.
Right.
And as managers, we need to role model having those conversations with our teams, right? And don't worry about, I always have scales in my mind. My 2 scales
Yes.
are what do you need from work, and what can you offer work? And then
Right.
what does the company need from you, and what can the company offer you?
You,
And
right.
it's always like about balance. My friend Jay Shearer taught me that. He kind of created a little career model, and it was all around this idea of what's on one side and what's on the other. And whenever
Right.
things
I
out of
love
balance,
that.
that's when the challenges are. But as managers, sometimes when we're sitting in that side of what does the company need from you, we have to be sometimes a bit of a career realist, to your point earlier, to say,
We
sorry, I
can't.
can't give you that, but let's talk about what I can do, right? Or what you can do,
That's it. That's it.
right? To bring that balance back. It's beautiful. All right. Well, Bev, thank you so much for being here with us today. And I am going to just share with everybody how you can get a hold of Bev. Her website is just chock full of all kinds of resources. So go there and make sure that you're, taking advantage of everything. We're going to be sending out some. Bev sent us some really great material to share. So we're going to be sending that out next week. So watch for that in your in basket. And then I'm going to turn it over to Shelby to take us through the rest. So thank you, Bev, for being here. It was wonderful having you. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Bev. That was fantastic. I enjoyed that so much. Folks, our next Ask the Expert is coming up in September with Karen Hurt. I'm going to drop the link here to register, so hope to see you there. As I said, we're taking a break for the summer, so hopefully everyone's got some fun plans and some time to perhaps relax, although it seems like nowadays all year is busy. So hope to see you in September for that. And as always, we are registering for our next Roundtable for Leaders open enrollment program. That's going to be a senior manager director level program launching in the fall. We've got 6 seats left. There's only 8 seats per cohort. So if you know somebody that is a good fit or interested, please reach out, and I'll drop the link here for more information.
And Karen Hurt is wonderful.
Thanks, but she is wonderful, and her new book is fantastic.
Yeah, so yeah, looking forward to having Karen and our Roundtable for Leaders award-winning program. Yeah, 6 seats left, like I said. If you need more information, you can contact my colleague Ashley Michael. And then finally, if you want to start your own peer group, Glein's Grassroots Leadership Revolution book comes with an awesome quick start guide. So you can grab 3 to 4 cross-functional leaders and start your own peer group. That quick start guide gives you everything that you need to get that started. And of course, we're always here to help you get that going if you need that support. And last but not least, please stay in touch with us. Those who have been around know we're like the Hotel California. You can check in, but never really check out. So here's all the ways to keep in touch with us. So we'll be continuing to share resources, blogs, and tips throughout the summer, but we hope to see you in the fall again for our live virtual events. And I think that brings us to 1 p.m. Eastern on the dot. Bev, hopefully your coffee machine will be fired up after this chat, and you can finally go have your cup of coffee. But thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And like Glain mentioned, we'll be sending out the recording as well as some of Bev's tools and takeaways. So check your inbox for that next week.